The University of California, Riverside undergraduate admissions presents Blue, Gold, and Black podcast that is dedicated to amplifying Black voices at UCR. I'm Savannah Richardson from UC Riverside's Black and African American Recruitment Unit in undergraduate admissions, where our team motto is We Raise the Bar. For season 2, not only will we continue to explore the intersection of being Black and being a Highlander, but also take a dive into the past, present, and future, or another phrase, accomplished, achieve, and aspire, of current and Black Highlanders. Hi, you're tuned into the Blue and Gold podcast, coming to you from the University of California, Riverside. I'm Savannah Richardson, and I'll be hosting today's episode. And today we have Ebube Agu, and he will be talking to us today about his upbringing and his time at UCR as a student and what impact he currently has as an individual and in his career today. He's currently the head of global apparel and accessory quality at Nike. How are you today? And thank you for joining us.
Hey, Savannah, I'm doing well. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to whoever's listening out there. It's always good to be back with UC Riverside.
Thank you for that. So for our first question, we're going to dive into what was your major as a Highlander and why did you choose UCR? And if you'd like, can you please elaborate on where you're originally coming from before attending this school?
Okay, yeah, I can probably do it, maybe reverse order. Right before I got to UCR, I went to a military boarding school in Indiana called Culver Military Academy. I was out in the Midwest, middle of nowhere. Not lots of diversity, but I had to get back to California. I had to get back to the West Coast. So ethnicity wise, I'm Nigerian. I was born in LA, but I grew up in Nigeria, and I've moved and kind of bounced around a lot. And so UCR was a way for me to get back to California, get back to family, get back to more diversity, and just you know, at the time of my life, that's what I was trying to decide against. But when I got to Riverside, I studied mechanical engineering. And so that was my focus, I think, with a sharp point in design and manufacturing, which I'm not really sure how that shows up, but that was my focus, was mechanical engineering. And that's why. So why did I choose UCR? I'm trying to think in order here. One, I had a cousin that went to UC Riverside, and she played for the women's basketball team. Shout out to Kemi Nikela. She was really dope and she was balling. And so we would come as a family to like watch her play at Riverside. And I remember like the games were always crazy and it was just a lot of fun, a lot of good energy. So first I had family that went here. Two, I remember there was like a strong like Nigerian community. And so that was kind of cool too, because it was almost like this home away from home kind of situation. But then three, when I had to ultimately decide, it was between UC Riverside, Santa Clara, and one other school that I'm forgetting. And it actually was diversity that took me over the edge. When I was visiting campus, I just felt like I saw, not only like racial diversity, I saw like diversity of majors, of thought, of economic status and upbringing and all these different things. And that's kind of what I gravitate to. I want to see and interact with people from all over the world. And so I chose UC Riverside.
Those are some really good points on why you chose UC Riverside. We do still currently have a really big Nigerian population with the student association, but we also have a dance team as well that comes out to the on-campus events, but also does events outside of the community as well. So it's always nice to see them on campus.
Yeah, you know it.
Can you share with us some of your more memorable times here on campus within the community?
Ooh, where do I start? I mean, first, yeah, the culture shows, whether it was, Abyssinian Union to Nigerian Student Union to the ABC conferences to just like, I felt like there was just really strong events and engagement to, GBS events to the fraternity and sorority events, like all of just the community aspect type things were super memorable. Nesby, Nesby meant a lot to me while I was on UC Riverside campus and probably is a big contributor to just the fortune I've had a lot of luck. I've had a lot of people that I've stumbled across that have believed in me and that have invested in me, and I kind of try to pay that back. But yeah, Nesby, from the minute I touched on campus, they, I mean, they came to the dorms, they did their research, and they were like, they need to know where every single Black engineer is. And the presidents and vice presidents at the time made sure to come knock on your door and personally invite you to the board meetings. And so that I think was important because for the other organizations, it was kind of like, hey, do I see my major in this org's name? Yes or no? And if I see it, then I go to that meeting. And then you kind of show up and you're like, all right, I don't really know anybody here. It didn't really feel like super inclusive. Whereas Nesby, it was like, hey, we're personally inviting you. We'll almost like escort you to the meeting. When you're there, everyone's going to show you love. They're going to make sure you know that, there's a community, that we got this. We'll all make it out of here together. We're all going to be engineers someday. And I think that was like very memorable for me. So, what else? What else?
And then while you're thinking on that, I just want to let everybody in the audience know Nesby, what he's highlighting is the National Society of Black Engineers. And actually on our last season, we had Desmond Harvey, the academic advisor that's attached to that student organization here on the show. And they are a powerhouse organization. And you did a great job on highlighting them. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. National Society of Black Engineers, the regional conferences, the national conferences, the experiences of, putting money together and going there together. My senior design project was super memorable for me as well. Just getting hands-on experience, internships, company tours and factory tours to actually see what the day-to-day of like, you know, of what an engineer does. Like all of those kind of small professional development type activities were very memorable for me because they bridged the gap between, you know, like theory and whatever I was learning in class and what actually prepared me for the real world. So anything that was heavy on development, heavy on people and interaction, heavy on like, being resourceful and navigating from A to B, all of those types of things are what is typically most memorable for me.
That's good to hear because I know when most people think of engineering, they're thinking it's lab and science based, head in the book, but you just elaborated that it's more than that as well. Networking and being involved with people. So thank you for that. You've
Yep.
kind of also touched on it a little bit, but can you let us know was there anything definitive here on the campus that you remember shaping your educational or career journey?
For sure. Um, I struggled in like the first 2 years of school, and there was June Wang in advising was really also instrumental. So I always go back to people. Sorry, you'll notice I'm like a big like people person, but I
Yeah,
think
we need connections.
you need
Connections
you need
connect the
you need
dots.
connections, and I think it's just really important, and it always grounds me and lets me know what role I should play. That's why I like to do things like this. I like to make sure I keep the door open. I like to always make sure that I'm reaching back and doing whatever I can that way. But um, I hope my answer doesn't fall flat. But I just think of like all nighters at the science library with all of my classmates, and we're all just like preparing, and those moments where you're just having to dig deep and really figure out what you're made of, figure out your work ethic, your learning style, this and that. Like it's just, you know, everybody has a different puzzle. Everybody shows up with different pieces of the puzzle at the moment in time, and we're all just trying to kind of piece this thing together. And there's something about the community and everybody like being invested in each other's success was is like really, I think, what helped me show up as a leader like today when I think of what does a diverse like slate of talent look like. And when you put that together and you compose it in such a way, you'd be surprised at what people can like actually accomplish. So yeah, I think of science library, physics 2000. I think of advising. I think of Nesby events and recruiting on campus, traveling. I think of having fun with my friends, making sure I found the balance between like, okay, I'm gonna have my head in the books, but I'm also gonna like enjoy myself as, late teenager, early 20 something. I think of soccer. I played a lot of outdoor, indoor soccer on the hockey rink out there, intramurals. So there was that community as well. So, just from sports to professional development to actual, fun and parties to educational engagements to the guests and visitors that we have on campus, it was like a cumulative experience that when you stacked everything on top of each other, I ended up leaving feeling like I was like well-rounded and prepared for the next chapter.
Nice. So you always felt like there was a reliable source of community and help around pretty much every corner. And you found avenues for yourself to fit in, to get motivated, whether it was physically or academically as well on campus.
Yeah, no shortage of communities and no shortage of people like giving you access to those communities and making you feel like you could pull up and be yourself in those spaces. Like it never felt like you couldn't do that. And I think subconsciously, I probably felt that when I was touring or when I was doing like the informationals or whatever. I probably felt that, and I was like, "Aha, that's that's my kind of people right there."
Right. For example, I'm thinking about like our Coastal Hall, how we have the different ethnic and gender centers like
Mhm.
ASB, African student programs, and Chicano and Latin student programs as well. But like when you go into those certain spaces, you never just see those demographics in there. You see a little bit of everyone because we're here to welcome everyone. So thank
Facts.
you for elaborating on that. Now we'd like to go a little bit more into your career journey. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about your current job title and what exactly it entails.
For sure. Um, so my official job title, like we were discussing earlier, I'm the senior director for global apparel and accessories product integrity at Nike. So what does that mean? Product integrity essentially is it's the promise to the consumer, right? So what we say the product will do, the product actually does in terms of quality, in terms of performance. And so in the apparel space, I lead a fantastic team that's responsible for ensuring that that quality and that performance through the lens of the athlete is built into the product from development all the way through bulk manufacturing, right? So you can make a prototype of this, t-shirt or this piece of equipment one time, but how do you do that 5 million times at in, four different countries at seven different factories, so on and so forth. So it's kind of taking these ideas, scaling them, but never wavering on quality. And so I lead that team and I report into sourcing and manufacturing.
Wow, that's a lengthy process.
It's it keeps me busy, keeps me sharp. But yeah, I give a lot of credit to just I have a very tenured team. Nike tends to retain talent and have strong engagement, so I learn a lot from the folks I interact with, and I think my goal as a leader is to just jump in and to maximize the potential of this group of people at this moment in time and how all of those pieces gel together. That's a lot of what I do.
So you mentioned that you're an engineering major. Do you feel like your major you chose aligns with the career path that you're currently on now? And how does that factor in?
You know, it does. It does and it doesn't in the sense of like I had to make a very conscious decision after my first internship while I was at UC Riverside. I interned at an aerospace company and I was a manufacturing process engineer. They made, airplane parts, they made helicopter blades, and I was in a real manufacturing environment. I worked with brilliant engineers that had patents. These guys had patents older than me, like just deep genius. And it was so inspiring. But when it came to like connecting that to the business or the economic value or the people side of things, it kind of fell flat. So I kind of felt like I had like too much energy or personality. And I was like, where, I was just like searching for the people. I was searching for kind of, and so I realized like, okay, this actually doesn't give me a lot of joy, the deep true technical. It's brilliant. It takes something that I don't believe I have, but I think my God-given skill sets were somewhere else. So I was trying to find the middle, and there was actually a black man that worked at the company at the time, and he was kind of this business project manager. And this guy would show up and he was just like a light. Anytime he would show up, these engineers, everybody lit up in the room, and he would be asking tough questions. He's asking you about money, he's asking you about deadlines. Some of the engineers, they try to like talk circles around him technically. He's keeping up, he's right there. You can't pull one over him. And so I realized actually that's what I want to do. And technically that's what I do now. So since then, I've tried to be a leader in a technical space. I like people. I'm very invested in development and mentorship and growing people, but I like to solve technical problems and use kind of the math and science side of my brain. And I get to do that today because there's a lot of like technical aspects in product. There's machinery that has to, you know, maybe apply this embroidery on this product at this time, this temperature, for this long. And if this goes wrong, there's a lot of kind of science and art that's involved, and that's what I like. There's the art of people, and there's the art of like the creativity and what the designers and developers and what kind of market we're trying to capture, mixed with like the super technical side of trying to make something 5 million times and making sure that it's the same every single time. So I get to use most of what I learned in school day in, day out.
Nice. I think you're really doing a good job of explaining to people you have to kind of find your why as you're developing yourself in college and figuring out what's going to make what makes you happy. I think a lot of people think I have to just find a job that's going to pay the bills and take care of me day in and day out. But you actually have to find a job that makes you happy, makes you want to stick with it, and a job to where you're going to want to start developing new processes and building upon yourself. So thank you for that.
That's true. And sometimes they always say it's hard to know what you want, but sometimes you have to go through a lot of stuff that you don't want. And
Mm-hmm.
that's
That's true.
also, there's kind of this like process of learning your boundaries and figuring out like, oh, I actually hate that. But the only way is to actually be in that and to go through it. So also a reminder to like the journey is the dream. And as you go through it, you'll realize and things will become clearer versus like you don't just land on the path in the exact thing that you're passionate about right out the gate. And then everything is like perfect from then on. It's the cliche stuff, but you kind of have to go through some stuff that you don't want to do so that you know exactly what it is that you want to
I heard that one loud and clear.
do.
For my next question, I'm not sure if you know, but UCR is known for being #1 in social mobility, and we actually just celebrated being 4 consecutive years in a row with that ranking. So I would like to know, how did UCR prepare you for social mobility?
I did hear that. And I really enjoyed. So we're defining social mobility as essentially I'm a student from this economic background. I join UCR, and then my potential, like my ability to essentially climb upward and end up in a different bracket. Is that, do you
Yes,
know,
whether it's economically or socially as well.
or socially? Yeah, yeah. I I've seen it, like I'm thinking of some of my friends and some of the people that inspire me and their backgrounds, their stories, but to get to UCR and to kind of like find people where like iron sharpens iron and everybody kind of has this like clear focus and you create these like accountability partnerships. But yeah, I sometimes I feel like I shouldn't even be where I am. And then I realize like nothing's by mistake and there's a lot I learned. And even when I speak to people at Nike that went to UC Riverside, we actually we hit it off the strength of how much we enjoyed our time, at Riverside and in the undergrad. So somehow, some way, it works. But I don't know what the recipe is. I don't know what it is about UC Riverside that's creating that. But if you were to ask me, I think it's I feel like it is a well-rounded education versus it's a curriculum that isn't only rooted in coursework, and they somehow find a way to add experiences, adversity, the people and the heart and soul side, the super like technical academia side, plus this and plus that. And to me, that's what creates people who have a resourcefulness and a certain drive to navigate this crazy thing that we call life, because it's not just one thing that's going to get you out there. Like, you could be the smartest person in the world and you don't know how to interview, you can't sell your skills, you can't market yourself, then it ends up being tough.
Right.
And so that's kind of, if I had to take a guess, it still goes back to people and communities and creating an environment that promotes like resourcefulness and that promotes networking. And we probably all help each other out in some way, shape, or form. So when we're actually out there, I actually feel like someone from UC Riverside will show love versus not show love. You know what I mean?
Yes. I just have to mention you really talked a lot about getting involved and staying active. You didn't just talk about staying in the books and staying focused. It really does involve your community, from being involved in the spaces to being in sports, using our career center, and actually networking. In terms of social mobility, I'm thinking you probably were involved with executives at the aerospace place where you worked out, right? Correct?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that's probably an experience you wouldn't even have had you not took that internship opportunity here at UC Riverside.
Yep.
So
It's
thank you.
it's important. It's not just the grades are for sure important. Don't get me wrong, but you're trying to be well-rounded. And I think it's almost like a, kind of sprint versus marathon. Like, you can be the sharpest, but that only takes you so far. But I feel like this well-rounded, you know, ups and downs. I got a little bit of this. I'm strong here, strong there, and I've got like a deep, authentic connection with people from all walks of life. That, to me, works out much better in the long term.
Agree. I have one last question for you. Is there
Okay.
any advice for prospective or current students here at UC Riverside, or those interested in being a part of your company or current field of interest?
I think yes. It's like, where do I begin, right? I'm trying not to say the cliche stuff and some of the stuff I wish I knew going in. It's tough to know what major, what you want to do, where do I want to go, all of that early. It's more so like, what are those things you kind of lose track of time doing? Is it, like, you just really get passionate about like physics, you're like very curious how like physical things in the world interact with each other, or like when I get in my creative bag, I like totally lose track of space and time, and I'm so happy. And then trying to align that to what you're doing in school, and knowing that you're gonna have probably 2 years of doing all sorts of stuff that don't have anything to do with that. You're like, this doesn't make sense. It does. It eventually does make sense. But your first 2 years doing the general ed and getting that well-rounded education that we talked about, there's that piece as well. So you have to go through that, and you'll meet different people who are going to go on to take different career paths. Actually, like, appreciate the 2 years before you get into your major classes and you start to get into the specialized education. The second piece is, as you choose a, maybe this, I don't want this to sound like limiting, but what I didn't understand is, when you choose an institution, you can actually end up living in that city for a while, right? And so, actually doing the research of what industries and companies are around the institution that I want to go to. So, actually researching what is lucrative around UC Riverside and why. And does that align with the majors or the direction I'm trying to go into? What companies are around there? Do they have roles that I could eventually get into? Because then that is going to actually, because the people from those companies are going to come to UC Riverside to recruit talent. And
Mm-hmm.
so you could either end up in a situation where you finish and you could move, you could pick up and move across the country, you can go anywhere you want. But more often than not, people are looking for roles like in the city that they went to school in. And I just don't know if that didn't click for me when I was in when I was like choosing a school. Eventually, of course, it did. But like to your point, prospective students at the point of like which institution, still a little bit of research. See what companies are around. When you look up UC Riverside, you'll find a deep distribution network of some of the biggest companies in the world who have all sorts of roles that are right there with all sorts of executives looking for talent from UC Riverside that's well rounded. And you'd be like, oh, okay, I could work with that.
Well, thank you for that. Because definitely here working in admissions, when I meet prospective students all the time, I'm telling them, do your research. It really makes an impact on helping you figure out what you're going to do long term. And I'm very happy that you elaborated on sometimes you do end up staying in the city where you graduated from, because everything is centered around this central area. So, students, if you're listening to this, SoCal is your area.
Yep, tons of opportunities in SoCal, and have fun. I always say it. You got to have some fun. Best years of your life. Make some deep friendships. Still, some of the people I'm closest to in my life, I met them during Riverside, and those experiences, those stories we share, whether it's driving to other UCs or just exploring SoCal, like just having fun. Live life, handle your business, and also have some fun while you're at it, and you never know where life's going to take you. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, thank you for that. You gave us a lot of things to really think on and to improve for ourselves to think about whether people are deciding on coming on this educational journey to UC Riverside. So thank you so much for your time today, and we do appreciate it.
For sure. All right. Later.
Thank you for joining us on Blue, Gold, and Black podcast. This was produced by Black and African American Recruitment BAR team of undergraduate admissions at the University of California, Riverside. If you'd like to learn more about attending University of California, Riverside, the website is admissions.ucr.edu. The BAR team also has a website, admissions.ucr.edu/bar, where you can view our upcoming events and programs for prospective students. Also, contact us regarding supporting student success and building community at UCR. The description box below has useful links and resources linked to today's conversation. Support this podcast if you enjoyed it by liking, subscribing, and sharing, and also checking out our other episodes as well. I hope to see you on our side.